So today we're talking about Alaska. What do you got for us?
Yes, I'm calling this Ultimate Alaska just because many people go to Alaska and sort of do, 7 nights round trip out of Seattle or something. So I'm suggesting we're going to be a bit creative today and find different ways to see Alaska.
Creative today about Alaska on Dream Travel Share Unpacked.
If you'd like to receive an email version of today's show, along with our weekly travel opportunities, click on the link below to join our mailing list. We promise to only send you one email a week every Friday. You can unsubscribe at any time, and we won't share your email address with anyone
So
else.
what do you mean by Ultimate Alaska?
Well, I think, again, so there's Alaska's a huge cruise market, and there's dozens and dozens of ships up there, of course, luckily it's big. Dozens of ships up there in the summer months, and again, a lot of those folks will go either round trip out of Seattle for a week or 1 week cruises between Vancouver and Anchorage. And so I'm going to suggest, if you're going all the way to, particularly if you live in the Eastern time zone, if you're going all the way to Alaska, spend some time, do some other stuff, and let's do it right.
Yeah. Denali is one of those that I would consider doing it right. Do you agree?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so I think so. I mean, first of all, coastal Alaska, what you see on a cruise, and the interior. So most people don't realize that Denali itself is like 8 hours from the ship. So it's 6 hours from Anchorage to get to Denali on a train or a motor coach. So, you're a long way into the interior of Alaska, and just geographically, culturally, everything, it's quite a bit different than coastal Alaska. And so that would be part of my ultimate Alaska trip. And of course, you can do this, you can configure this trip any way you want. But seeing as how you brought up Denali,
Hmm.
my suggestion is going to be, and again, you can do this trip northbound or southbound, but my suggestion is going to be fly to Fairbanks and start your trip there.
Why are we flying into Fairbanks?
Well, this will make way more sense if you get a map of Alaska and British Columbia out, but Alaska, or I'm sorry, Fairbanks is sort of like middle of the state, whereas Anchorage is in the southern part of. So you imagine what Alaska looks like. It's like a square and then a panhandle that dips down south onto the Canadian side, really.
Yeah.
And Anchorage is at the bottom of that square main part of Alaska. Fairbanks is closer to the middle. So the reason you want to fly to Fairbanks is you'll be traveling in the same direction the whole time. So if you fly to Anchorage and then go up to Denali, which again, 6 hours, visit Denali, spectacular. Then you got to come back down. So you're sort of retracing the same route you went up. And so this
Mhm.
way you start further north because Fairbanks is actually a couple hours north of Denali National Park. So you fly to Fairbanks, and frankly, in my opinion, Fairbanks is just a more interesting place than Anchorage. Anchorage is lovely, but
Mhm.
it's an oil town, right? It's there for the oil industry, and believe it or not, they've got a huge shipping and transportation business there as well, globally. Fairbanks is a very nice little tourist town that largely exists to service the tourists that are going to Denali. So it's a nice place.
Yeah.
What you give up flying to Fairbanks, of course, not as many options as there is flying to Anchorage. But either way, unless you live in Seattle or Minneapolis, you're going to be connecting anyway.
I agree with you. So I spent a little bit of time in Anchorage, and
Right.
it was a little bit too much time. But they do have, there's a couple nice things. They have a couple new brew pubs that are very, very popular. And if you want anything, any touristy store, that's what you're going to get in Anchorage.
In
But there's a
Anchorage.
couple nice walks and everything. I tend to advise people you don't need to be staying over.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's great advice. And again, there's nothing offensive about Anchorage. It's fine. I'm just saying if you have to choose between Anchorage and Fairbanks, Fairbanks is the one I would pick.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, likewise in Fairbanks, you don't need a whole lot of time there. Like often there's goofy flight times when you go to Alaska, so you arrive at like midnight or something. And
Mhm.
so let's call that one night, and then you're going to want one other night in Fairbanks, and then you can quickly run out to Gold Dredge number 8, I think it's called. Might be number 6, can't remember. Anyway, the Gold Dredge, and you can go. Did you do the Chena River cruise when you were there?
Yes, the
Yeah,
Chena River. It was
yeah,
one of the most memorable experiences in all
yeah,
of Alaska. It was really good.
yeah. So you
Yeah,
put those ticks in the box, and you're good to go. And the good
yeah.
news is when you're done there, you get on a train or a motor coach, and you're only two and a half hours from the main gate at Denali National Park.
How long do you think you need in Denali National Park?
Yeah, good question. At least 2 nights. So there are some cruise tours that put you in there for one night, and that's not enough. And the reason being is the park tours. You have to get well into the park before you can actually see Denali, um, and like 60 miles, I think, into the
Hmm.
yeah, 60 miles, I think that's right,
Yeah,
into the park. So, but needless, and the roads aren't paved in Denali National Park. So, and you can't drive in there on your own. You have to be escorted. So it's a full day deal. Like the shortest excursion into Denali National Park is about 6 hours, and the one I would suggest is closer to 9 hours. It sounds onerous. They make it pretty easy, but you're going there to see Denali, and it takes a while to get there. And then on the way, you're doing game drive. It's like being in
yeah,
Africa almost. You're looking for grizzly bear, and you're looking for other creature, and you'll see them, right?
yeah.
So you want to have the time to do that. And so if your excursion into Denali National Park is going to take a whole day, you need to have slept there the night before, and you need to sleep there the night after you're it's still going to be rushed with 2 nights. If you want to just kick back at the lodge, and the lodges are spectacular.
Hmm.
If you want to kick back at the lodge, you might need 3 nights. I think you stayed at the Holland America Lodge there,
Holland.
didn't you?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was so beautiful. But I did go over and check out the princess one as well, just because
Yeah,
I wanted to kind of get a feel for both. But gorgeous, on a cool June night. They had fire outside. You could have a glass of wine just outside one of the restaurants.
yeah,
There's a local band playing there. And we did two, and I'm almost thinking I wish that we did three. So we did the Denali trip to Denali. We are very fortunate. We got the most beautiful shot of Denali, and it was all
yeah,
about the wildlife on the way there. But you're right. I think it was an 8-hour cruise or a tour that day.
yes,
Then we got back, we had dinner, we slept overnight. Then we went for a day kayaking. So I didn't have an opportunity to walk around anymore. So I
right.
wish I had one more day.
Yeah.
Yeah, one
Yeah,
more
and the
day.
Holland America. So the reason, okay, so for a bit of context, Princess and Holland America own the cruise market on land, right? They have these huge campuses. I think that Holland America lodge that you were at, the Denali lodge, is 40 acres or 50 acres or something. It's
Yeah,
ridiculously large,
big.
with all these amenities that make it a very nice place to stay. And Seabourn actually uses. So Seabourn, again, you're probably aware, same mother corporation as Princess and Holland America. And Seabourn uses Holland America's infrastructure on the ground in Alaska.
That's perfect.
Yeah, and so they put all the Seabourn guests in the premier suites right along the river there, which is
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, if you want time just for hanging out, you're going to need 3 nights at Denali. And what's cool about it is they have, as you say, you can sit outside. There's usually entertainment there and everything else. And of course, if you go in May, June, July, August, it's light out until midnight, right?
Hmm.
So that's kind of the fun part about being in Alaska is the midnight sun. It starts to get dark, and if you're there in September, October, it tapers off a bit. But it's fantastic in the summer just to sit at 11 at night for a nightcap and the bright sun.
Oh, it's beyond bizarre.
Yeah,
May I add, when I did my trip, I did Denali and Yukon, and the
yeah.
Yukon, and we were actually in Dawson City, Yukon, and it got dark for about 3 minutes at 1 a.m. So I made myself stay up till 1 a.m. just so I could experience this, and it was a fantastic journey, and just to experience that, it was pretty wild
You can see sunrise and sunset in a
at the
10-minute
same
period.
time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Only in the north. Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's great. Yukon is another great add-on there. Just for clarification, the areas we're talking about here are huge. So you are flying to these places. You're not, you know, I remember
Yeah.
looking it up, and just for reference, if Alaska and British Columbia were a country, it'd be like the ninth largest country in the world or something. Like it's bigger than most places, right? And
Yeah.
so, I mean, people talk about Texas and how big it is, and it is, but Texas fits 3 times into Alaska. And British Columbia, there's 2 Texases in there. So Texases? Anyway,
Texas is.
there's two times the size of Texas in British Columbia, and then Yukon, right, is another Texas times two probably. So
Yeah.
we're talking about huge area and huge distances between places, and so Denali's the star of the show up there, but there's lots of other peripheral stuff, whether it be Yukon Or if you get out a map again and look at the space between Denali National Park and Anchorage, then lots of people stop in a place called Talkeetna, which is sometimes called
Mhm.
McKinley. It goes by both names. And that's in the state park of Denali. And that's a place that's a bit like a ski lodge. You sit, you drink wine, and you look at Denali. Because interestingly, in the actual township of Denali itself, the one we were just talking about, you can't see the mountain. You have to go,
Yeah.
again, you got to drive for a few hours into the park to be able to see it. From the township of Talkeetna, McKinley, on a clear day, you sit and you just look at the mountain, and it's incredible.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. What's the difference between coastal Alaska and the interior,
Right.
would you say?
Yeah, so I mean, the interior, it's all these things that we've just been talking about. And so eventually you make your way down to Anchorage. Anchorage is actually 2 hours from its ports. So the cruise ships dock in either Seward or Whittier, which again, either of those are 2 hours from Anchorage itself because Anchorage doesn't have a deep water harbor. So once you're there, so that's called the Kenai Peninsula, where Seward and Whittier are. And that starts to feel more like coastal Alaska. So that is the rainforest. It's the largest temperate rainforest in the world. So it extends from coastal Alaska all the way down to Portland, Oregon. Now it doesn't look quite the same in Portland as it does, up near Anchorage. The trees are a bit smaller the further north you go, but it's these thick, great because it rains all the time. So coastal Alaska is actually very moderate. So it rains more than it snows on the coast in Alaska and British
Mhm.
Columbia. It does snow, but not very much. And then the further south you go, like you get as far south as Vancouver or Seattle for that matter, very rarely does it snow there. When it does, the whole place grinds to a halt. But it's because they're really not used to it. So the whole coast is very green and dense, thick rainforest, which is completely different than, up in Denali, for example, you're looking at permafrost. And even though it's warm in the summer, if you dug a hole and went down a few feet, it's frozen. And tundra, right? So you get this rolling sort of, there's trees, but they're small and there's not a whole lot of them.
All of it's stunningly beautiful,
Yeah. Yeah, and
coast to coast. Yeah.
the thing to keep in mind is, you can't talk about Alaska or British Columbia as one thing. So one of the things I tell people is that if you board a ship in Vancouver, if you're standing on the port, if you're standing on the dock in Vancouver getting ready to board your cruise ship, when you're standing there, you are actually closer to Mexico than you are to Anchorage. Uh, and then when you get to Anchorage, it's another several hundred miles north into Denali National Park. So we're talking about a vast area here. So you can't talk about the weather or the geography as one thing.
Okay. That kind of leads to my next question. So, what are common mistakes that people make when booking or planning their trips to Alaska?
Mm. Yeah, so leveraging on that previous point is it's underestimating the time and the distance. That you'd be
Yeah.
surprised how many people say, "Oh yeah, I want to take a cruise from, Vancouver to Anchorage, and then I'm going to rent a car and drive back to Vancouver." No, you're not. So, no, you're really not. It's the road is paved all the way now. I think it's been fully paved for the last 20 years or so, but there's no straight line. It's some of the most rugged geography in the entire world. There are no straight lines. So it's I don't even know, but I remember looking up for somebody once. It was faster for them to drive from Chicago to Vancouver, which is a considerable distance, than it
Hmm.
was from Vancouver to Anchorage. So,
Wow.
we're just talking about vast space. So underestimating the time and space. Likewise, if you're flying off the Eastern time zone, which probably half our clients are, it's going to take you 5.5 hours to get to say Seattle, and then it's another 4 hours to fly to Alaska to Anchorage from there, Anchorage or Fairbanks. So, you're closer to Europe if you live in the Eastern time zone than you are to Alaska. So if you're going to go, you don't want to go for a weekend. You want to spend some time. So people underestimate the amount of time they're going to need to do it right.
Is it better, do you think, to go out of Seattle or Vancouver?
It doesn't matter. No, Seattle and Vancouver, if there wasn't an international boundary between the two of them, they'd be one continuous city by now. They're 100 miles apart. Lots of so the Vancouver's the larger of the two ports. There are more options out of Vancouver than there are Seattle. Seattle tends to have a lot of round trip cruises. So if you want to see Denali, you need one end of your cruise needs to start or finish in Anchorage. There's some exceptions, but most of those cruises, Vancouver's the other end of that cruise. So it's Vancouver to Anchorage, Anchorage to Vancouver. Seattle round trip is the most common again, exceptions, but that's largely that's the pattern. But
Yeah.
lots of our clients that want to take a cruise out of Vancouver will use Seattle Airport. So when you fly, obviously Seattle is better served for domestic flights than Vancouver is.
Mhm.
And so they'll fly to Seattle, and then the Amtrak. You can take the Amtrak between Seattle and downtown Seattle, downtown Vancouver. It takes about 3 hours, I think, and it's an incredible journey. It goes twice a day. The Amtrak between, I know it's Amtrak. People don't think, well, Canada, because why would it go to
Yeah.
Canada? But Amtrak does have a few Canadian stations. One of them is in Vancouver. So about 3 or 3.5 hours, I think, including your border crossing time. Most of the journey is right on the ocean. It's an incredibly scenic way to get between the two cities. And yeah, so I don't think it matters either one.
Mm. You know what? One thing I noticed. So we've got a lot of clients that have been to Vancouver already, and maybe they haven't been to Victoria. One thing I've been noticing with a lot of the itineraries I'm looking, the Seattle's usually will go over into Victoria instead of Vancouver. They bypass Vancouver and then go Victoria back to Seattle.
Yeah.
So something to, if somebody wants to see Vancouver or Victoria, that might be a helpful place for you to start. If you want to do a Seattle round trip, you're going to be able to see Victoria.
Yeah, yeah, and Victoria is actually quite a bit closer to Seattle than Vancouver is. Again, this make way more sense if you get a map out. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's all three of those cities in my mind are stunningly beautiful and well worth seeing. So yeah, you're not going to have any problem finding stuff to do at the southern terminus of your trip. And of course, Vancouver is, if we're talking again about Ultimate Alaska, if we are talking about starting in Fairbanks, going to Denali National Park, making a few stops, getting on a ship, sailing coastal Alaska, get out, probably in Vancouver, maybe Seattle, and then get on the Rocky Mountaineer
Ooh.
and do the train trip between Vancouver and Banff, Banff, Lake Louise, Jasper. There's a bunch of variations, and fly home from Calgary. That, in my mind, that's ultimate Alaska, because that Canadian Rockies train trip is, the scenery is every bit as spectacular as what you see in Alaska, but different.
Yeah, yeah, I happen to agree because I've spent some time in the Rockies, and
Yeah,
I when we were in Alaska, I kept saying, "Man, this reminds me of the Rockies."
yes.
There were so many similarities, but yet there was a lot of differences. But oh, that is the ultimate trip, I think.
Okay. Ultimate
Yeah.
Alaska.
What cruise line do you think is best to go to Alaska?
I would hesitate. That obviously differs depending on who you are and what you're looking for. And literally everybody is there. So if you want to go on a big mega ship, as I was talking about earlier, Princess Holland America, they each got like 7 vessels there. They kind of own that market. But
Yeah.
all the other, if your favorites, if you're a mega ship person and, Royal Caribbean or Norwegian, or they're all there. Disney's there. Literally every cruise line is there.
Yeah.
So you've got lots of choices. If you're looking for, most of our clients end up on small ship luxury cruises, and I would suggest that Seabourn is a great option there. We talked about them a couple of weeks ago. People can look up the details there, but because we have a private sale running this month, we can get you a great price on an Alaskan cruise with Seabourn. But they also offer their Ventures program, meaning that if you're not sure if you want to do an expedition cruise to Alaska, of which there are plenty, or a luxury cruise, then you can go on Seabourn and you can kind of split the difference, right? Because they are a luxury cruise line, but they've got some expedition offerings off that luxury ship. So Seabourn's one I would look at if that strikes your fancy. You know, we've got lots of Viking clients. They run an 11-day itinerary that goes between Anchorage and Vancouver. Silversea, Regent, Windstar, they're all there. So,
Mhm.
whatever your favorite cruise line is there, I would argue you should make your decision based more on itinerary than anything else when you're in Alaska.
Well, that's awesome, Bob. Thanks. What are we talking about next week on Dream Travel Share Unpacked?
Well, it's a little in people like it when we give them these little inside looks to what we're doing. So, Virtuoso Travel Week, which happens every year in August, is just happened, and we're going to give you a report from what we learned at Virtuoso Travel Week. It's sort of like the definitive luxury travel exposition for the year. It's compared to Fashion Week in Paris for the textile industry. And so we will be bringing back a report on what we learned at Travel Week and why we go and all kinds of other stuff.
Awesome. Look forward to it.
We'll see you then.
Bye for now.
If you enjoyed this video blog, it really helps us when you like, or better yet, subscribe to our channel so that we know the best content to produce for you. If you want to book a cruise or package land vacation, then we'd love to help you out. We know the products and destinations very well, and we can always get you something not available on direct bookings. Our coordinates are in the notes below. Also, if you haven't signed up for our newsletter yet, you get one email a week every Friday with some commentary and some different deals that we're seeing in the marketplace. We don't share your information with anyone else, and if you decide it's not for you, then we're sorry to see you go, but there's an unsubscribe button at the bottom of every email. See you next time.